Hello, and welcome to Afternoons with ACEs, sponsored by the DC and Mid-Atlantic OATUG, InnoApps, and Creel Consulting. My name is Kelly Fitzpatrick, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator and Public Sector Account Manager for Creel, and I'm on the board at the DC and Mid-Atlantic OATUG. I will be moderating today's conversation, Extending SaaS with PaaS, and how that has changed with Oracle innovation. This webinar is the second in our series, Afternoons with ACEs. More than a webinar, the format is similar to a podcast and will be conversational in nature. All attendees are currently placed in listen-only mode and will remain that way throughout the session. There's a chat feature in your Zoom console. If at any time during the session you have a question, you can certainly place it in the chat and use the raise your hand feature to alert me to the question. I'll transmit that question to our guests at the appropriate time so they may respond. Joining me today, we have Oracle Application ACEs Lee Briggs and Thomas Simkiss from Creel, and our guest is Oracle ACE Director Debra Lilley from InnoApps. And with that, I'll hand it off to them. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. So as Kelly said, this is the second of our Afternoons with ACEs sessions. I'm Tom Simkiss. We have Lee Briggs from Creel Consulting. And of course, we're honored to have Debra Lilley of InnoApps, the grand dame of Oracle ACEs, certainly. So what I'd like to start with, we were kind of discussing before we started the recording just about the on-site attendance and going to conferences and stuff. And so, Debra, after you give a brief background and introduction to yourself, I'd love to pick up that conversation and just see where you're going to be and how you feel about conferences, and then we can get into SaaS with PaaS.
So thanks. So my name's Debra. I live in the UK. So it's early evening here now. I've been an ACE director since year 2 of the ACE program. And mainly my expertise is around the technology that runs the Fusion applications. So Fusion applications consultant, but I'm really interested in the technology and what that means for customers. I've worked for InnoApps for nearly 9 months, and it's a company that only does Oracle, and we've got great growth plans, and I've got this fancy title, VP of Delivery, Growth and Excellence. And basically that's to take all of the wonderful things that have made the company successful so far and then scale that up, which is something I'm going to really enjoy. So yes, we were saying before we started that I'm going to be in the US for the next few weeks, and during that time I have 5 conference presentations. Some are in person and some are virtual. And we were discussing those different formats, and I'm all for virtual, and we would not have survived the last 2 years without virtual presentations, conversations. Without that ability to carry on talking with each other, we wouldn't have survived. But I found it very 2D. I found as a presenter, it's great. It means I can present to anybody at any time. I did a presentation yesterday morning in Australia, which was the evening for them. And I wouldn't have been able to do that. I wouldn't have been able to go to Australia for an hour. But I find it very, very difficult to have interaction with the audience. I tend to present the same presentation differently every time, depending on the room. If it's a small audience, I love a small audience. If it's a small audience, it can be more personal, and I can ask questions about their organization. If it's a big room, I can be more generic. If they look bored at one point, I can move on, or if they look really excited about one bit, I can drill down. I can't do that in a virtual presentation because I'm not getting that feedback from the room. And then I don't get the questions either. I tend to be quite a lazy person, so I would go to Oracle Open World, look at what interests me, what's coming in my area, submit something for what was Collaborate, and knowing that that gave me 4 months to drill into it, learn it, and present. And then I would evolve that presentation or presentations over the year. But now I feel I'm giving the same presentation every time because I'm not having that feel. But then, you know, travel has started. I'm traveling. I've been traveling since about November. I've been over to the States a few times. The company I work for have an office in Houston. And I've been to a couple of in-person conferences. And to be really honest, the ratio of partners to end user customers isn't right. There's still too many partners. But that's because we, you know, this is what we do. And therefore, it's much easier to go to a conference. Whereas organizations, which is where end users come from, some haven't gone back to the office yet. Some have gone back to the office, but they're not allowing travel. And so there's this nervousness about, well, you know, if we're not back to work full time, should we really be going off and doing this? And then there's also that, well, we've managed for 2 years on virtual, why don't we carry on virtual, right? But if we don't hold those user groups, and I'm on the board of ODTUG, so our case scope is coming up, if we don't hold them, then they will die, right? So user groups were already declining before COVID. We have to hold our nerve. People won't come back if there's nothing to come back to. So I'm really, really looking forward to them. And I'm not, it's just going to be so great to have those conversations after people's sessions. And the other thing as a presenter that I don't do is, if there's an event on and it's virtual and there's 7 presentations, I log in for mine and give it. But at a conference, the chances are I will attend some others, and then I've learned as well. And I have to learn from other people. So I'm hoping that the conferences in the next few weeks are going to be successful. They will be successful. They will be very successful, but will they be what everybody wants? I'm not sure that we're quite there yet, but we need to hold our nerve and we will get there.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. So there's a couple things that like I noticed, and I would so number one is, you know, we've been doing implementations, Lee and I, for 2 years remotely, and you know, we've been able to do it. Like you said, thank God for these tools, technology, we're able to move forward. But like I noticed, there's just certain things that when we're in person, I can get a concept across in 2 minutes, whereas online, the same concept with the same group of folks takes half an hour. It's just some of the stuff that we talk about is so esoteric. And the other thing, and this is just, you know, not to compare myself to an actor, but, you know, I always hear a lot of people that can actually act and present for a living. It's so much better to do a stage performance than it is to do television or a movie, because you get audience feedback and you get, you know, so I always make the joke to my sales counterparts, I'm like the Sundance Kid. I do better when I move. When I'm giving a presentation, I prefer to kind of prowl the stage and look people in the eye and see what they're doing. And if we prowl the stage when we're doing this, well, I'm going to go off camera. And that kind of defeats the purpose of the Zoom.
And there's also,
especially in, I'm sorry, Debra, especially in a session like this. So you are seeing me talk right now. And depending upon how you have Zoom, you can see the other cameras up here. So I will have all cameras up and I can see that. But a lot of folks will be like, I'll cover up my camera, I'm not going to do anything. And then you either lose you lose that interest, you lose that camera, or you then start, you know, okay, you're going to be looking at an email and did everyone get that? You don't get any feedback. That's a tricky part. I think when you do it online, you have to be invested in being online. It has to be, I am at the conference. I'm not, oh, let me just have a quick look at an account inquiry. I'll go and do this over here. You know, you have to be there.
There's also another part of it, right? So the format of today is a conversation, right? We do need to get onto the topic soon because that's what people have logged in.
We will, yeah.
But the but we've logged in for a particular thing and we've wandered off track and we're having a great conversation, right? If you are presenting, you present a topic, right? And because you're not getting that interaction, you're not going off topic and learning other things. And to me, we've lost the power of osmosis. How many times do you go into an office with a customer or colleagues and you learn something because you overheard them talking about something, or a conversation changed direction? That doesn't happen in a Zoom meeting.
It doesn't. And so the last thing I'll say, and then we will get on our topic, I promise. So obviously one of the conferences coming up in a few weeks is the Ascend conference, the Oracle Applications and Technology User Group. And I'm fortunate enough to be on the education committee, and I'm actually on the committee for the conference this year, which is kind of cool. And one of the things that Mike Jones and Meeting Expectations, who runs the event, did a really good job on, is ensuring that there was places for breakouts, because you get as much knowledge as a user having a conversation with another group of users, if not more so than listening to one of our sessions. Just because you get the truth and you get the cold hard facts. So with that, in the light of day, SaaS and PaaS. So Lee and I started doing Oracle Cloud, I guess in 2013. And, it was, you had your rails and you could not go beyond it. Like in ERP, CX had always been a little bit further ahead in HCM. HCM had Page Composer way before we had anything like that in ERP. And you had the ability to use Groovy scripts in CX, which you just got the ability to do in ERP not that long ago. But, when I started doing this in 2013, our response was, it's cloud. You can't customize it, and you're locked in, and that was kind of it. And I don't feel that way anymore. I feel with the addition and what you can do with Visual Builder Cloud Service, what you can do in PaaS, you can really almost do anything you want. I have not had too many requests that I've had to say no to. And I'd kind of like to get, what your thoughts are, some of the things that you've done, and, how it's evolved, and how you use the tools.
I'm smiling because I have a colleague who has just written a blog. I don't even think he's published it yet, but we were discussing this concept a few weeks ago. And, the it's vanilla, you can't touch it, whatever. And, you're right, on ERP or on-premise, we could go in and we could do what we liked. For us as consultants, we've done really well out of that over the years. And now we're paying for it as we unpick it to move it to something else. But we were talking about this, and I love analogies. And the one that Dermot, my colleague, came up with was, it's like an ice cream, right? We have bought, Fusion is a vanilla ice cream. It's the best vanilla ice cream. It comes in all sizes, but it's vanilla ice cream. We cannot change it. We can't make it a raspberry ripple or a Neapolitan. We have bought vanilla ice cream. But my word, do we love our sprinkles and syrup that we put to extend it.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is something that you do in the US, but where I live, we dip our ice cream in little tiny marshmallows. And, all of those things we can have, so we can extend our Fusion, but we're placing it on the outside and we're not changing that vanilla ice cream in the middle. I'm going to make him watch the YouTube bit of this, because I promised him if I said it, I would give him the credit. So that's Dermot, and he'll be
the thing that concerns me, though, and I'd like to get your perspective on this, and Lee just experienced this with the latest release. We were doing a data load, and this is really SaaS than it is PaaS, but we were doing a conversion load for, I guess, customers. And if I'm wrong, Lee, correct me. And, we went through CRP3 and we loaded 20,000 customers, and it was bulletproof, no problems, right? Oh, great, UAT is going to be going to UAT and try to load the customers, and things starts bombing left and right, because unfortunately UAT was after a patch was applied, and they changed the file-based data import and added another column, and it's a required column. And it was, in fairness to Oracle, if we had bothered to read the release notes, it was clearly in there. It was clearly in there. And
the thing that really irritates me, and it irritates a strong word, I've had this happen 2 times. both has been with customers, and it's always been, we're going to put column, we're going to put a new column in. We'll just put it in the middle somewhere. Everyone will be okay with that. But second time in, as Tom says, 9 years, whatever. Second time. Oh.
So I agree. It's really frustrating, and I agree that it catches us out. I'm sitting here smiling because I've got a UAT going on at the moment, and we're exactly the same. 22B came a couple of weeks ago, and we're in there. But the fact that it didn't work shows you that they have bulletproofed the application for upgrade, right? The reason that happens is because you're using a file to deliver into it, right? If the change had been made inside, then it could do all sorts of trouble. That's the trouble that we had before. So yes, we have to read the release notes. I believe that there should be somebody in each organization whose job it is to read that and to understand the impact that has on the customers that you've got in flight, right? So, that perhaps there's something there, but most of the time we don't get caught out on that. And the extensions allow us to have things that stay, that whilst what Oracle's done might mean we've got to fix them, and think of your file loader as the most basic extension, right? Even though it's provided by them, even though it might not work when they've done an update, it doesn't affect the application. The application carries on. So when we're doing our extensions, we just need to make sure that how they interface, and the file loader is a very simple one, how they interface is checked and tested, and you found the problem because you tested it and it failed. Okay, an annoying time, yes. But that's what as a solution architect, it's very difficult to remember that you've got a window in which to do all of these things, and your production to tests and your updates, which come very, very quickly in that time frame, all have to be blocked out and allowed for. But it's part of the fun, eh?
Well, I turned it into a positive, and I believe this. I didn't just say it. I looked at it as positive. The application did what it was supposed to do, just like you said. Like, I think about the things that we used to do back in the good old days of 11i, and even in 12. I did all kinds of crazy stuff for the right reasons. We did insert triggers and update triggers because it was the best way to do something, and we did database links and all this other kind, and it was valid. It was good, and we followed the. After 10 years after we started doing it, when Oracle came out with standards, we started following those standards. And even if you followed the standards, stuff would change, and you wouldn't know because there's just no way to do it. Whereas what they did with cloud, they put the standards in, and if you follow the standards and it changes, during testing,
So I loved your bit about no database links. So when I start a project, I say to the customer, blah, 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 and all the way through the sales process, you cannot touch this. It is a closed box. You cannot touch it. You can configure it. And that includes, now there's some amazing things that we can do with the design studio, etc. But it's still configuration, right? This is the box, right? And they say, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, don't need to tell me I understand what cloud is. And then you get going, and especially with customers who are coming from other Oracle products because they're used to doing this. And then there's a problem, they can't understand where the data is or something, and they say, oh, I'll just run a SQL script against that, or I'll just do this. And then they go, oh, I haven't got a database link. And I go, wow, I may have told you that on day one. There is no database link. And then I see organizations who say, oh, I've got a solution for doing this. And I'm saying, how are you doing that? And they're actually sucking out all of the data to run their clever answer on that data, right? Hey, where's the security in that? You've got this really secure vault, and I'm going to take all of the data out to run my clever answer on it because I can't get in here to
Yep.
manipulate data. And I think,
I'm
not so sure.
There's a company that I'm working with that I will not name, and it's one of our clients uses it, and they're a fine company, do a nice job. But in the R12 days, I had a cottage industry. I made clients going into their customers and proving that their reports were wrong, right? Because they missed a couple things, and they'd be like, I'd go, my financial statements that I built using this tool don't tie to my trial balance. Why is the trial balance wrong? And I'm like, dude, the trial balance isn't wrong, man. Your tool's missing stuff. And now in the cloud, to your point, what they're doing is they're sucking the data out. That's exactly what they're doing. They're giving you the access to it. And then I ask the same question. I'm like, where's the security on the data? I'm not saying it isn't there. Maybe it is, but where is it? And I get these looks of, what are you talking about? Kelly, do we have questions? I see a couple chats in the chat window. I want to be cognizant.
Jeff is saying here that the Splash BI SQL Connect accesses the database directly. I am yet to be persuaded about exactly what's happening there, but I'm not disputing that that's what's happening. Okay.
I'm the same. Wait, if he says it is, I believe him. It's okay. I'm not. And I was not talking about Splash BI, by the way. That was not the application I was referring to. So
I was thinking about something completely different. It wasn't about reporting. But there is still this, you cannot do the things that we used to do, right?
Yep.
But there are lots of tools that we can use. Oracle's, so the tagline PaaS for SaaS, right? Which is really annoying to key because it's a capital S and a little a and a big S. Yep. Especially on your phone, I've had to set up a shortcut for that. But anyway, that's probably my biggest problem with it. Is so that whole portfolio has extended. And Oracle has, so 2013 PaaS didn't exist. Right. We didn't have PaaS, and then even when we got PaaS, it wasn't recommended. We were still being told, leave it alone. This is what you've got. You must do everything that the system does. But no organization works in a vacuum. And despite what Oracle might like us to believe, nobody is wall-to-wall Oracle. And even some of Oracle's own products aren't, so that Fusion applications are well integrated, that's one database, etc. But there are some other things that you might want to use that still need to be connected. And then I found the first few years of PaaS, I found so incredibly confusing. I went to a hackathon that was created by ACEs in the Netherlands, where the ACE directors were invited along, and we got into groups, and the idea was to build something that used as many different PaaS components as possible. Because there were just so many. At one time, there was like 30 or 40 products in the PaaS portfolio. And it was like, where do they get used and what's the value? And we actually had a competition to try and use as many as possible.
Only the directors get invited to that. We lowly ACEs don't get those invitations.
There you go. There's something to aim for, right? But it was good.
Oh, wow.
It was good fun, but it was making to me, it made the point that it was a very large portfolio, and how did you recognize what bits to do? And then Oracle started putting them into buckets. The credits helped a lot because this idea of failing fast, trying one tool and then deciding that actually another tool, because so many of the tools overlap in functionality, and because you're paying for, it's a subscription based, then it didn't matter if you tried one and moved on to another. With the universal credits, that was good. That got better. The actual costing model has got better, still not perfect, but has got a lot better. And then just renaming like cloud infrastructure and the integration pack and everything just so much easier to understand. And then determining, I've presented about how to extend for a while, and I was there's been a lot of chat amongst the ACE community around some products that have come out from Oracle and then haven't gone that far, or products you thought were going to be sunsetted and haven't, and whatever. And I really don't. I think it matters more to us as professionals than it does to an organization. Once they've set their strategy and they've bought into something, you know, most of the tools will do what they need. But so there's the big debate around whether you should extend using VBCS or whether Apex. I was probably more on the VBCS camp because I really believe in the user experience, and I loved the fact that automatically it used the same UI as Fusion. And that meant that, you know, once I'd set it up using the configuration to extend it in my menu, my end user didn't see the difference, right? But there's quite a lot of things to consider there. Security, you know, Oracle Fusion's got brilliant security, but the minute you add something to it, where's the security around that? And then, but I always said in my presentations that Apex works really good if you're happy to compromise on that, not exactly the same.
Right. Yeah.
And I gave the use case if you had a small user population, right? You know, you have a small user population, there's only a few people in your organization using it. Do you want to spend extra money on another product to make it exactly the same when 2 or 3 people are using it? Probably not. If it's transient, you know, if you've got an organization that's going over in stages and you just need an extension until they've moved, then is it as important there? And then I came to InnoApps, who do wonderful things in Apex, and they've got the Redwood theme in all of their products. So, you know, they've done that as well. So it's a little bit more work to get it there. It doesn't happen automatically. But my word, I would not know I wasn't in the application. So, you know, the products themselves have developed, our understanding about what we can do with them has improved. Oracle have made it easier. You know, if you use VBCS, all of the APIs are exposed to you. Right. You can see what's there. You know, it's really, really clever.
That's the nicer thing I think about VBCS than Apex, which this is my experience. Like I've built a couple apps, and it's drag and drop. They're certainly not world beaters, you know what I mean? But we needed something really quick, and I was able to do it. Like I said, it was really just drag and drop to the APIs, you know, whereas Apex, you still got to kind of know what you're doing, even though there's some really nice UIs and drag and drop and pre-built components in Apex as well. But we have a client now.
A little tip for you, okay? No one's listening. Here's a little tip. Go into VBCS, have a look at all of the available APIs, and then go and use them somewhere else.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So we've had things like that. We've had, we've just loaded all these AP invoices, you know, with whatever integration, and we put the wrong terms in there. What can you do? It's like, start editing the invoice, and then you go, but wait, there is a tool that can maybe do that. And it's doing dumb stuff like, okay, I'll do this in Excel and just let me get a query of all those invoices, change the terms, and send it back.
The visual builder tool, that was the coolest thing ever. Because I said, you know, we didn't want to get a developer involved just because we're super busy and it was going to take me a couple of days to do it. And the client uploaded 18,000 invoices with the wrong terms. And they're like, you know, fix it. I'm like, okay, we dug around. I think it took us like 15 minutes to dig around, and we put the Excel plug on in for Visual Builder, found the API, downloaded them, uploaded. It was
absolutely.
it's great.
And do you know what? Those are the most common extensions. Extensions sound like they're going to be really big things, and we have got some really big, you know, we've got products that we sell on Oracle Marketplace, you know, extensions for particular industries, right? So that's, you know, industrialized extensions. Mm-hmm. But most extensions, when a customer says, I need to do something and you can't do it in the application, there is a way to do it. And what you're describing is you cannot go in and edit. And even if you did that in eBusiness Suite, you shouldn't really have done it, right?
Right. Hang on. I think you mean you shouldn't have done it wink, right? It was the wink. The wink was implied.
I don't think so, because I would always have been one of those people who said, You really ought to put this through the interface tables so that everything gets, you know, the proper checking. And that's what you're doing there. You're saying, I'm taking a standard loader, but I'm allowing you to do Excel, which VBCS is allowing me to use to enable the customer to do it in a spreadsheet and upload it through a properly supported way where the data isn't being corrupted and it's being validated as it would be if you'd gone into each record and amended it. And that's the important thing. But when we're talking about APIs, etc., I thought, you know, the tagline here is, how's that changed with Oracle innovation? So I want to tell a story about Digital Assistant, right? So Digital Assistant first came out, chatbots, this is what we're going to do, it's great. And I thought, wow, I love this, really want to see this. How can I use that with the applications? And the first year, there was no sign of it being in the applications, right? So I did a proof of concept with the development team, the chatbot development team as it was. And we had a go at building out what's my salary, okay? Straightforward question, easy intent, build it. We have an employee API in HCM, okay? So we built this out at the time. So remember, this is before it was embedded into the applications. So at the time we had to find a platform. So we just used Facebook Messenger. It was free. It was something to try out. We used mobile cloud as our back end. But what we found was that API in HCM had no security on it. It was a developer's API. So once I gave the developer access to that API, they could see everybody's salary.
Yep.
Okay? Now that's not what you want. If any of these extensions should just be allowing you to do more with the stuff you've got permission for, not allowing you to go beyond the security, right? So we had to write a custom API that duplicated the security role over and above this. So we could get the data out, but then we had to customize basically copy the security role to make it work. We could do it, but it was a lot of work, right?
Yep.
Then Oracle said, hey, they then went to Digital Assistant, which is so much cleverer than just a chatbot, and said, hey, we're going to embed these into the HCM module. Makes sense. They write it, they maintain it, and I hate the term, but it's out of the box, right? Now, one of the first things that development said to me when they started with this was, we've got to write some new APIs. Because they know that the API they found the same problem that I did, that this API doesn't have the security. So now each of those Digital Assistant intents that's included out of the box has a robust API to run it, which we as consultants who are extending for other things can use those APIs. Right? So the product, not just the PaaS, but the SaaS has improved as these tools have developed.
Well, go ahead, Lee. Go ahead.
I'll say, and that's one of the cool things about going back to the first discussion we had about these conferences. Like when you are developing something in-house or whatever, you're focused on, this is what I have to do. When you start going to these conferences and have these side chats, it's like, oh, wait, you're doing that? Okay, because we've found blah, blah, blah. And you start getting that kind of thing. Again, Oracle, I'm sure Oracle development came to you, Debra, and said, hey, we're doing this. Can we borrow what you just did? And I'm sure that kind of happens, but it's the whole listening to one person who's done it once for their specific thing, or getting that background of, hey, I've got a ton of people behind me who have done this kind of stuff. And this is how we've done it.
I write about this in my blog a lot, the gap between what's marketed and the adoption of it, right? Because you think about any technology, we get a use case, right? And Oracle pushed that use case and push it and push it and push it, talk to people, get early adopters, and I'm an old woman and I'm quite staid in my ways, and I've laughed at some of these technology things. And then all of a sudden you get all of these explosion of use cases that Oracle never considered. So speech to text, right? So way before chatbots, speech to text. Do you remember that? Well, you can still do it today. You know, the original expenses app was, the advert was taxi $10.
Yeah,
right?
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember people walking around open world doing it in their pockets, you know, saying taxi $10. I found if you didn't sound like George Bush, it didn't understand you. That was, you know, I thought I had quite a straight English accent. I wasn't Scottish or Belfast or whatever, but I couldn't get it to understand me, right? I had tried speech to text a few years previously with my daughter when she was doing, you know, university and writing hundreds of essays, and you had to actually read prose to this Dragon software, which is what Oracle were using, Dragon software, to get it to work, right? Anyway, I thought it was a bit of a gimmick, right? And I remember presenting in India at the Sangam conference to this room of EBS people and saying, you know, there's this technology and Oracle have got this use case. I'm not sure where it will be of use. And this, about half the room were from General Electric. And they said, well, we have a use case. And I said, well, explain it to me. And they said, well, the big windmills that generate electricity, someone drives up to one of those and climbs 1,000 stairs and does an inspection of it. And they've scanned a barcode at the bottom to say where they are. They've gone up to the top. If they use any spares, they scan a barcode and it knows what the spare is that they've used. But their visual inspection, they still have to go back to their vehicle and go into EBS, into the module, and then type in that information. So the idea of being able to speak in while they're actually in each windmill was phenomenal to them, right? Well, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Right.
Somebody in Oracle development wouldn't have thought of that because it was very specific to their industry. And now we don't think about it. We do our text, we do everything, we can do everything. You know, I can tell my TV what to do by, well, I'm not going to say it because she'll start talking, but that thing in the corner of the room, that thing in the corner of the room, you know, that's all about speech to text, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, in the back end. So I always, and I remember, you know, I've always had a really good relationship with the user experience team in Oracle. And I remember at Open World one year, they had you know, they asked people to come in and look at new technology. And they were saying, ask the system how much holiday you've got left. And I couldn't get my head around this, right? This chatbot idea, this is before it was out there. I couldn't get my head around it. And I said, there's someone behind that curtain answering these questions. And actually there was at that stage, right?
Yeah, well, I believe that.
It was conceptual at the time, but then we moved into chatbots, then digital assistants, and now we do it for everything, don't we? We just don't think about it, right? So, but so I love all of these exciting things that are coming. You know, at the moment, I think all of my examples have been HCM, and I apologize for that. But well, journeys, you know, journeys, and all of this, my experience, all of those exciting things behind it. Now, I love unpacking it. You know, what's actually here yet? What's not here yet? How long will it take? You know, digital assistant, I think, is brilliant. Customers don't pay any extra for it now. They did, but they don't if they're using it within the application, not extending, right? But how many people are actually using it?
Well, you know, the problem is you need the customer to drive the use case. So I'll give you a non-HCM example that I've used a million times. We use it at our warehousing clients, which is voice picking, right? So these guys go up and down and they're driving on their forklifts, and they can, you know, voice pick and just say, you know, I'm picking these 20 cartons, and it goes in and updates. And that's a great use case. But beyond that, like a digital assistant, so I'm a financials guy, right? Like I can't think of a good use case for digital assistant in the financials world, but I'm sure somebody has one. I'm sure that you know, being able to speak what's today's revenue or something could probably be useful. But we're consultants, we're not the best at thinking of use cases. We're paid to solve use cases. So I don't beat ourselves up too bad for that, but that's what customers do.
I don't beat ourselves up for it, but it's just every customer has them now because they come with the application, but the adoption of them is it's more prevalent on net new, on the new customer because it was there when they started their implementation. But I haven't seen many who implemented a few years ago who are now saying, hey, I want to do this. But I'm having the conversations with people, and then as they get to the stage where there is, I prefer, rather than to look for use cases, to solve challenges. And the challenge could be anything. Right. I don't believe that you should go in and say, hey, you've got all this technology, which bit do you want to use? I think we should be saying, hey, what's the challenge in your organization? Oh, by the way, there's a technology that could do that.
Yes, without a doubt. That's I agree with that 100%.
We should be working. It shouldn't be, here's a menu. What do you want? It should be, how can I add value? Because they've bought the application. They've bought the application and they've bought into that, that vanilla ice cream that Oracle have offered them and that they want for their organization. And then we should say, you've got a sweet tooth. What is it that you crave? Oh, I've got some raspberry.
Dermot should be making so much money off you for all this time you're using his story.
I know. But I think it's such a good way of explaining it. I love analogies, right? But I just think our job is to help people with challenges. It's not, please buy this. It should be, in my EBS days, very early in my EBS days, I went to see a customer about 6 months after they'd implemented. And I said, how's it going? What's it like? Whatever. And they said, oh, no problems. We're loving it. It's great, whatever. And I said, nothing at all. And they said, nope. And this little voice popped up and said, what about my problem? And she said, oh, it's not a real problem. Ignore, don't worry about it. And then we went on for another hour or so. And I said, are you sure this is it? And she said, oh, yeah, there's no other problem. And I said, well, I'm here. I've nowhere else to go for the next couple of hours. What is his problem? Right? What is the issue, the challenge that he has? And she says, oh, he's just a junior in the office. Don't worry about it. And I said, no, come on. If someone's got a challenge, let's have a look at it. So his job, and remember that we used to always look back at our data. We didn't have all of these tools to look forward in our data.
Yeah.
His job was to look at their procurement, at their spend. So he ran a job every day that looked at purchase orders that had been raised, right? And his problem was every day that report got bigger and bigger, and he only needed the last few pages. Because the box that said, put forward the date hadn't been ticked. So he was getting the list from day one. And as they got to month 6, his list was like this. But imagine what it would be like in 12 months and whatever. And I'm very proud of the fact that that story is in Carrie Millsap's book about performance tuning. Right? But it's, that was the customer's challenge, and it's my job to fix those challenges. That one was really simple, but some of them require a little bit more, which requires us to extend them. And those extensions are done properly when they're written properly, integrated properly, are not recognizable as an extension to the end user, and secured properly, can really make a difference to an organization. And like you said, as an organization comes up with a use case, either we or Oracle development suddenly think, actually, do you know, we could do that? Or if we can't do it, what do we need to do to make it happen?
Yeah, we talked about that last month with Mohan Iyer, just about the Oracle community and about raising enhancement requests and stuff. And we said the same story last month. Lee and I think, I won't say it's 3, but like we've had 3 scenarios where, you know, our clients have raised like an enhancement request and they got the votes. And within like 8 months, like within the life of the implementation, it was put in the application for the client. Like it was done. Like it's a sale. It sounds so sales-like.
So much. It's
Like, it's a benefit of cloud. It is a benefit. Like, so, you know, we got the evil of changing the customer import halfway through UAT, but you also have the benefit of it's new stuff. New stuff's coming out every 3 months.
So there's 2 parts to that. One, Oracle have finally got the enhancements process right.
Yeah.
Right. It used to be a pain, you know, user groups would send the stuff in, but Oracle has an independent user group model. There were at the last count 450 user groups. So which user group got the biggest vote? You know, it's basically who did it land with in development, really. Mm-hmm. And each part of development was separate, right? You know, we're down to, you know, not even the family pack, but the actual process was the different part of development. So they've got the enhancement process right now. You know, Customer Connect is brilliant for customers. I feel it gives us nowhere to hide as consultants, because they're getting the information the same time as we are in some cases. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's beside the point. I think it's a brilliant platform. But so the enhancements process is right now. And then exactly what you say, there is no waiting for the next release. There is no, or for the next update. Oracle can determine the priority and then they can deliver it, and not necessarily all of it at once, right? Because you're not saying to someone, commit to this upgrade and we'll give it to you, but actually it's only going to be 2/3 of the way there. So really you've got to wait another year till the next one comes out. You don't have to do that because everybody's getting all of it all the time, which is why it's a pain in the ass when you're doing your UAT that you've had an update, but that's the flip side of it, right? The positive side is that you're going to edit that bit out, aren't you?
Not even slightly. You said no editing, so
you said no editing.
I must apologize
this is
for the unfamily friendly content there. I don't mind at all. But it's just the, you know, that fact that we are getting this innovation. So like, okay, this time last year, Oracle were talking about journeys, right? This year, they're talking about widening that to my experience. We've got some of that. So journeys came out we've got new functionality for like 3 consecutive updates. We've now, just this last one, we've got connections has been delivered. We're hoping that communicator and touch points is coming in the next, in D or C or D, right? But that's just amazing that can come. Now, there's a flip side to that. There's how do you keep on top of that? You know, it's not just reading the release notes. It doesn't come switched on, which is good because it would be disastrous if it was. But then because you don't have to take it there and then, it's not just about what's in this one, it's what was in the last one and the one before and the one before that you haven't yet decided to do. So there's an awful lot of plates spinning there, but it does mean that when a challenge comes along, there will be a way that we can solve it.
So the one knock I'll give on them recently, so I think it was this week, the email came out that Web Center Portal is going to go away in 23B, right, next July. And, you know, Lee and I, we haven't used Web Center Portal since like 2014, I guess. And I forgot what it did. I got to be brutally honest with you. I'm like, the email came out and like 10 minutes later, I'm getting emails and calls like, what's this? What's going away? And I'm like, okay, they could have done a better job with reminding people what it is. It's going away. Just because, more or less anybody that bought cloud probably up to 2016 is probably not using it anyway. But all right, so real quick, so one thing, so you're on the road for 5 weeks. So I'm going to sound like Bill Maher, what clubs are you playing? So what conferences are you playing? And which ones are you speaking at in the next couple of weeks?
So I'm starting my trip by having a holiday, because if I'm in the US, I may as well vacation from the US because it's quicker. So I'm having a week in Mexico. My passion in life, if I haven't bored everyone.
Sorry, Deborah, it's not really America, just so we're clear. It's its own country, but we're with you. We're good.
From America.
There we go. Okay.
Yes. It's a much quicker flight from Houston to Cozumel than it is from London to Cozumel. Okay. Yes. And a lot cheaper. So I'm starting off with a holiday. However, I am doing one virtual conference whilst I'm on holiday. And then I fly back to Houston in the office for a couple of days and doing a virtual presentation for the Spanish user group, which is a hybrid event, which is really sad because I would love to be there, but I'm not close to Spain at that point, so I can't go, but I would love to be there. It would be great to be back with the Spanish user group. And then I go to Vegas and I'm at Blueprint 4D with and I have a presentation in there where I'm talking about journeys to the cloud audience there. Then I'm going to Ascend with yourselves. I wish I'd known that you were on the education committee before, because I haven't had a paper accepted for them, but never mind, I'm still going. I know, but I have said we'll have my laptop with loads of presentations should they need one at the last minute. So,
I have said the same thing. I will tell you this, we consciously, and this is a good thing, we consciously looked for users, and we didn't exclude anybody. Obviously, if you had paper, we submitted it, but I know in my votes, I really tried to focus on abstracts that were from users rather than consultants. A goal that I have as part of the education committee is to make it more user focused than it has been in the last couple of years.
So do you know what I find quite difficult? And I'm not getting into an argument here. It is what it is, right? But you only have the option to be a partner or a customer.
I know.
I use every day Fusion ERP, Fusion HCM, OAX, PBCS, Apex. I use all of them every day as a user, right? My organization runs on Oracle top to bottom, but I can't put myself down as a customer because I'm a partner, which is really— I'm
in the same boat. Creel's in the same boat. I hear you. It is annoying.
But anyway, let's move on from that. And then the following week, I'm in Dallas for Kscope, and I'm on the board of ODTUG, and I'm speaking there. They have a modern apps development, which this year is dedicated to PaaS for SaaS. So have that. And somewhere in there, I have another virtual session. But yes, I'm keeping busy for.
So plenty chances to hear from Deborah. So I will miss you. I'm in Austin the week before Ascend, and then Lee and I are obviously in Ascend, so we will see you there. And Kelly, any questions that I know we went through a couple that people asked that we did address, but did we get any questions from our audience that we did not yet address?
There's no questions at the moment, but certainly if you're listening in and you'd like to ask any questions to Deborah, Thomas, or Lee, now's your opportunity to chime in the chat. You guys did an amazing job today, and I do want to thank you. This was very entertaining.
We did get a couple,
and informative.
We did get a couple, Deborah, that came up after people watched the YouTube video with Mohan last month. I got emailed like 15, it was like a lot. And I got emailed like 15 questions. So please, folks, that if you watch this on YouTube, you can certainly reach us via LinkedIn, and Kelly has the website, but Deborah is all over LinkedIn. You guys are welcome to send questions.
I did I did one for the Indian user group, and actually they were very good at asking questions. This is a tip for anyone hosting a virtual conference. they had spot prizes for the best questions, which encouraged people to ask.
You see, if your company wants to sponsor Afternoon with ACEs, #Afternoon with ACEs, then we'll be happy to give out some freebies. More than welcome to.
But what we did was, there was one question I couldn't answer, right? And I hate the people who make up the answers, right? I always say, I don't know, but I'll come back to you. And what I did was I blogged about the answer so that I could share the question and the answer with others. So if questions come in afterwards, I'll do the same. I'll blog with the answers.
So the other part I'll help Kelly with is, as well as reaching out to LinkedIn. These sessions are pushed on Twitter. They're pushed on Facebook. So if you follow Oracle ACEs, certainly I know they've been pushing it on Facebook, as has Creel, as has Debra. I know on Twitter, Debra is on Twitter a lot of the time. So you can reach out to Debra, you can reach out to Tom, to me. Oracle ACEs has been pushing everything. Creel's been pushing everything. So, get the message out, #Afternoon with ACEs.
And if you send me a great question, we can send you a free Bluetooth speaker. There's your prize.
Oh, there we go.
Well, Debra, I cannot thank you enough for doing this. I really appreciate it. This is good conversation. This is exactly what we were kind of
Have me back another time. I've loved it.
Yeah, so we will absolutely have you back. We're off next month because we're going to be in Las Vegas. We would normally do it. And I think July is Susan. Is that correct?
Yes,
Susan
it
Bain,
is.
yep.
Susan Bain. Yep. So, and then we've got another European colleague from England in August. I think it is Andrew Bonet, right? From Innovate Tax.
Yep.
So we're trying to go around the world. So Debra, I can't thank you enough. I will let you go, and I will see you in Vegas. I'll see you for cocktails.
Thank you very much. See you.
Excellent. Thank you,
Thanks,
Debra.
everyone.
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks, Lee. Thanks, everybody who attended. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.